And indeed, when intoxicated, people tend to reveal their truest emotions. However, there are also many incidents caused by drunkenness that have led to devastating consequences. Stay tuned for this video to discover the case we bring to you today. Hello and welcome back to World Mysteries. At noon on April 8, 2010. The weather in Dongsun Village, Dongying City, Shandong Province, was unbearably hot. Hong Jiang, a freight truck driver, pulled over by the roadside to find a secluded place to relieve himself. While looking around, Hong Jiang noticed a reed field not far away and quickly headed toward it. However, as soon as he arrived, he suddenly caught a terribly foul odor. After finishing, Hong Jiang became curious about the source of the smell and began searching around the area. About 10 meters from where he stood, he discovered a bulging woven sack. Hong Jiang confirmed that the odor was coming from the bag. Driven by curiosity, he moved closer. At that moment, he noticed countless flies swarming around it. The horrifying scene made him suspect at first that the bag might contain a dead animal. But then his instincts told him something was seriously wrong. Hong Jiang approached the woven sack, holding back his nausea as he opened it. What appeared before his eyes left him utterly shocked. Hong Jiang immediately ran back to his truck and called the police. He reported to the authorities that he had discovered a corpse in an advanced state of decomposition. After receiving the report, the police asked Jiang for the exact location and instructed him to preserve the scene until officers arrived. However, the incident quickly attracted the attention of passing pedestrians and nearby residents. About 10 minutes later, police officers and 2 forensic examiners. After confirming that the woven sack contained a body, the police quickly established a security perimeter and launched an investigation. By then it was nearly midday, and the scorching heat made the investigation extremely exhausting. The scene was identified as a reed field, less than 50 meters from the main road and not far from a residential area. The reed field was an illegal dumping site. Most of the trash came from passers-by, throwing garbage there. That was why few people approached the area. So the bad smell did not raise suspicion. Li Jiantin, a local resident at the scene, told police he had seen the sack there long ago, but he assumed it was just trash and ignored it. He never expected a corpse inside. The body was severely decomposed, making it impossible to identify facial features. The victim's pajamas were the only clue. From the clothing pattern and hairstyle, police believed the victim was female. The autopsy confirmed she was a young woman, around 20 years old and 1.63 meters tall. She had died about 8 months earlier, around August 2009. Forensic doctors found no stab wounds on the skull, throat, or anywhere else on the body. No sleeping pills or poison were detected either. Police suspected the victim had been strangled to death. Investigators noticed the dump site had been carefully chosen. The tall reeds concealed the area, and almost nobody came there. Based on this, police believed the killer was likely a local or someone familiar with the area. However, some investigators argued that since the reeds were near the road, the killer might have passed by, found the location convenient, and dumped the body there. So both the killer and victim could have come from elsewhere. Rumors that the killer was local made villagers anxious. People began gossiping and discussing possible suspects in the village. Although the motive and victim's identity were unknown, the tightly wrapped sack suggested the murderer had acted carefully and remained calm after the crime. Because the sack was heavy, police believed the killer was likely a strong man or multiple people. To confirm these theories, the top priority became identifying the victim. Only then could they trace the killer. Besides the pajamas, police also found a necklace without a pendant. After examination, it was identified as a cheap stainless steel chain. Its market price was only around 15 to 20 yuans. From this, police believe the victim was not financially well off. Such jewelry was commonly worn by students who could not yet earn much money. However, witnesses also said many young women preferred cheap accessories, so they could frequently change styles. Therefore, investigators still could not narrow down the victim's background. The investigation team then expanded the search around the area, hoping to find documents or objects linked to the victim or killer. Meanwhile, because the reeds were dense, police asked locals for help to speed up the search. They searched carefully through the reeds and finally found a cracked mobile phone. The phone was located less than 3 meters from the body. Since the area was used as a dumping ground, people often threw trash there. So police could not confirm whether the phone was related to the case. Still, investigators decided to examine it carefully. The phone was a black Huawei model, a very popular brand in China, because black phones were commonly used by both men and women. Ownership could not be determined. Investigators proposed two possibilities. First, the phone belonged to the killer, who accidentally dropped it while transporting the body without noticing. The phone became damaged. The second possibility, the phone had nothing to do with the case. Someone may have simply thrown it away there. However, investigators noticed the device was still mostly intact with only a cracked screen. Discarding it over minor damage seemed unlikely, so police focused more on the first possibility, meaning the phone was probably linked to the case. Since they could not power it on, police took it to a repair shop. Technicians examined the device, but discovered water damage had ruined it completely. Even the SIM card was affected. Recovery would be difficult and time-consuming. While waiting for phone results, police split into teams to handle different tasks. One team released case details through local media, hoping families of missing persons might recognize the victim. Another team investigated missing persons reports from the past year. Soon, residents informed police about a missing young woman from Dongsun village. Her name was Hong Ni, and Ni was 23 years old, the daughter of Hong and Veen. Their home was located about 1 kilometer from the crime scene. She was reported missing in late September 2009. Relatives, friends, and authorities joined the search effort. But until now, her whereabouts remained unknown. Villagers also said the Hong family had a troubled reputation. Not only were there family conflicts, they were also disliked by many villagers. People noted that, not long after Annie disappeared, her brother Hong and Phi also left town. After hearing this, police visited the Hong family home. Strangely, before officers explained anything, Mr. Veen immediately claimed the body found in the reeds was not his daughter. His reaction made investigators suspicious. When asked why, he hesitated and refused to answer. Police had already learned that Annie and her brother often argued. Since Mr. Veen would not explain himself, investigators considered that the victim might be Annie, while Phi could be the killer. They suspected the family had helped him escape. After hearing the police theory, Mr. Veen denied it immediately and finally told the truth. He revealed that Annie had not disappeared. The missing person story was fabricated as part of another plan. Annie had accumulated gambling debts from loan sharks and could not repay them. To escape the debt, she pretended to go missing. With no other choice, the family helped cover it up. As for Hong and Phi leaving soon after, he had gone to a larger city, hoping to earn more money to help repay his sister's debts. Mr. Veen added that Annie was currently hiding at a distant temple to avoid being discovered. Police expanded the investigation to nearby areas. In a neighboring village, officers discovered another strange disappearance. A woman named Miao Lin Dam said a young woman named Kai Lan had worked at a livestock farm in the village. Kai Lan came from another province and rented a cheap abandoned house near Dam's home to save money. About 6 months earlier, Kai Lan suddenly vanished. At first, Dam thought she had returned home urgently, but she never came back. When Dam asked the farm owner, she learned Kai Lan had left without notice. Dam also revealed that a young man often visited Kai Lan. Kai Lan introduced him as her boyfriend. However, the couple argued frequently. The night before she disappeared, they had a loud fight. Since then, Dam had been unable to contact Kai Lan because Kai Lan matched the victim's age. Police became suspicious, but after visiting her hometown in Anhui province, they learned Kai Lan was alive and working in Shanghai. Several more days passed, yet no one came forward to identify the victim. The prolonged case caused growing public anxiety and increased pressure on investigators. Then police received news that the SIM card from the recovered phone had finally been restored. The subscriber belonged to Tran Vai Tu, a 22-year-old from Hebei province. However, police confirmed she was still alive. Tran Vai Tu explained that months earlier, while visiting Dongying City, her phone had been stolen by a man while she was walking alone at night. She had no idea why the phone ended up in the reed field. Police later confirmed her statement was truthful, although Tu was not the victim. Investigators considered another possibility. The thief who stole the phone might somehow be connected to the murder. Even if true, finding the suspect would be difficult. More time passed, and the inability to identify the victim pushed the case into a deadlock. Police tried tracing clues through the victim's pajamas, but the clothing had no manufacturer logo and was sold widely everywhere. That detail provided almost no useful leads. More than 2 weeks after the body was found, the case finally saw progress. On April 24, 2010, police from Changgol County contacted Dongying authorities about a missing person report filed back in August 2009. The missing woman's age and height closely matched the victim from the reed field. The report had been filed by 54-year-old Trung Quang Quang. The missing woman was his daughter, Trong Tiu Man, age 20. After receiving the information, Dongying police contacted Mr. Quang immediately. That same afternoon, Mr. Quang and his wife Dao Din Van arrived at the station. When police showed them the necklace found on the victim, Dao Din Van burst into tears. She said it was the necklace she had personally bought for her daughter's birthday. Still, police needed stronger proof, so DNA testing was conducted. The results confirmed the victim was indeed Trong Tiu Man. She lived in Changgol County. What confused investigators was why her body was found in Dongying City. Her parents explained that she had been studying at a university in Yantai during her final year. She needed to complete an internship. In August 2009, she moved to Dongying for work and lived there alone. What her parents never expected was that shortly after moving away, she suddenly lost contact with the family. Her disappearance caused them great anxiety. At the time, they asked local police for help, but no trace of Tiu Man was found. Investigators later asked where she had lived in Dongying. Her parents said she only told them she was staying with a friend and told them not to worry. Tiu Man had always been independent, so her parents trusted her. Knowing she had just started work, they avoided calling too often because they feared disturbing her. They never imagined that after only a few days, she would suddenly disappear and cut off all contact. Mr. Trong told police his daughter was quiet and rarely shared personal matters. During her second year of university, she once brought home a classmate named Luo Hu Mai. Her parents believed their daughter did not have a boyfriend because she often said she wanted to focus on studying. Through Luo Hu Mai, police learned that before disappearing, Tiu Man worked as an intern in the recruitment department of Tuong Fat Garment Company. However, she never revealed where she lived. Hu Mai also revealed that Tiu Man once dated a programmer named Thatch Tone Trung, age 25, before moving to Dongying. The couple had broken up. Hu Mai did not know the exact reason. Based on this information, investigators visited Trung's home. Trung admitted he had dated Tiu Man for 3 years. He said he wanted to make the relationship public, but Tiu Man preferred to keep it private. Afraid of upsetting her, Trung always followed her wishes. Before leaving for Dongying, Tiu Man suggested breaking up because she disliked long-distance relationships. Trung refused at first, and the two argued. Later, realizing she had become distant, he finally accepted the breakup, despite still loving her deeply. Since then, they had never met again. When informed about Tiu Man's murder, Trung appeared surprised. But during questioning, investigators noticed his attitude seemed dishonest. He also showed little sadness or shock. This made police believe he was highly suspicious. Investigators then asked to inspect his phone. Trung reached into his pocket, but after a few seconds, he hesitated and refused to hand it over. This behavior made investigators even more suspicious. Police found that in August 2009, he was still texting Tiu Man. The messages showed he missed her deeply. Tiu Man also replied and even agreed to meet him. Seeing that Trung had lied, police brought him to the station for further questioning. At the station, Trung changed his statement. He admitted they stayed in contact after she moved. Before police arrived, he already knew what had happened to Tiu Man. He lied because he feared trouble. Still, Trung insisted he was not involved in the murder. He then revealed new information. According to Trung, the last time he saw Tiu Man was at a park in Dongying. He met her there, hoping to reunite. But Tiu Man refused. She said she already had a new boyfriend, a manager, at her company. That afternoon, she called him to pick her up. Soon, a neatly dressed man arrived on a motorcycle. The two acted very close, making Trung furious. He immediately returned home. After that, they never contacted each other again. Trung described the man as around 30 years old, short, dark-skinned, and balding. Police began investigating him immediately. They went to Tuong Fat Garment Company to gather information. There, police learned that Tiu Man had worked there less than a week before disappearing. More importantly, she had no male supervisor. Her manager was a 40-year-old woman. Co-workers' statements raised a question. Was Tiu Man or Trung lying? Police believed solving that could lead to a major breakthrough. Further investigation showed that while Tiu Man worked at the company, a man around 30 often picked her up. Her co-workers noticed him, and around 1.65 meters tall. He did not look like an office worker. He looked more like a laborer. After reviewing CCTV, investigators captured the motorcycle plate number. Checking the system, police identified the man as Nui Haifong, a Dongying resident. Very quickly, Fong became the prime suspect. Police learned the 33-year-old was unmarried. He once served in the military, but was expelled for misconduct. Villagers revealed they disliked Fong. He constantly changed jobs and worked irresponsibly. No one knew where he worked. To the villagers, Fong remained mysterious. Almost nobody knew his whereabouts. While gathering information, one villager suddenly asked police if the victim was Tiu Man, Fong's girlfriend. Fong had claimed she returned home already. So how was she murdered here? Hearing this, investigators felt close to solving the case. They questioned the villager further. The man, Quach Lam, explained that Fong once dated a village girl named Hu Tu. Later, Tu's cousin, Tiu Man, moved in with them. One day, Lam saw Fong and Tiu Man hugging like a couple. He was curious about their relationship, but stayed silent because Fong was known to be violent. Police quickly went to Fong's house, but neighbors said he had left 2 weeks earlier. The timing matched the body discovery. Police became convinced Fong was the killer. A nationwide warrant was issued to quickly locate him. After days of searching, the investigation finally progressed. Dongying police received information from Binzu police. A local resident reported seeing a man resembling Fong inside an apartment complex. Investigators rushed there immediately. Upon arrival, the man admitted he was Nui Hai Fong. Fong calmly asked police why they were looking for him. He acted surprised, as if unaware of everything. Police explained the case and brought him in. Inside the interrogation room, Fong began trembling. He could no longer stay calm. Finally, unable to deny it, Fong confessed everything. He said, "Even now, I don't know why I killed her." Fong explained his complicated relationship with Tiu Man started over half a year earlier. At that time, Fong already had a girlfriend named Hu Tu. The two loved each other deeply and planned to marry. To save money, they lived together. In August 2009, Tu told Fong her cousin, Tiu Man, was coming for an internship. Feeling sorry for her, Tu invited Tiu Man to stay with them. She also asked Fong to help Tiu Man settle in. Fong always spoiled his girlfriend, so he agreed immediately. Fong and Hu Tu went to the bus station to pick up Tiu Man from Trong Lac. They even treated her to dinner at a large restaurant. At first, Tiu Man seemed shy. Fong warmly served food to her and told her to relax. He joked they would soon be family anyway. Hearing that, Tiu Man relaxed, and the three chatted happily. They exchanged phone numbers afterward. Later, Fong and Tu took her for a walk. After that, Tiu Man returned to her dorm. She said she would come back again to keep job hunting. Once employed, she planned to live with them. Afterward, Tiu Man often texted Fong first. Out of politeness, he replied and asked if she had found an internship yet. When he learned she still had not, Fong offered to help her search. This time, Tiu Man brought luggage and moved into their house. While Hu Tu was away, Fong and Tiu Man drank together and ended up sleeping together while intoxicated. After sobering up, Tiu Man was shocked. Before she could react, Fong quickly left. But what troubled him most was something else. His girlfriend Hu Tu was pregnant. Tu was only 22, while Fong was already over 30. He had no stable job and a bad temper. People looked down on him, including Tu's parents. They strongly opposed the relationship. To drive him away, they demanded an enormous bride price. Fong still visited to ask for permission. to marry too. But her parents soon discovered he had a fraud history. In short, they hated him and refused him as a son-in-law. From then on, they ordered Tu to return home and leave Fong. Fong tried to act sincere but was ignored. He became deeply depressed. At that moment, he thought of Tiu Man. That night, he borrowed money from her. With Tu absent from the house, Fong and Tiu Man slept together again. Around this time, Tiu Man finally found a job and Fong often drove her around. Tiu Man thought he loved her, but he only saw her as a younger sister. She became furious. One day, missing Hu Tu badly, Fong started drinking heavily at home. Saying it was inconvenient living alone together, Tiu Man became furious and shouted, "You invited me here, and now you want to kick me out?" No matter how Fong explained, she refused to listen. Finally, she provoked him, saying she would leave only if he paid her, wanting to end things completely. Fong promised to give her money in 2 days, but Tiu Man still threatened to tell Hu Tu everything. She swore she would make Tu hate him and leave him forever. Fearing he would lose Tu, Fong panicked. He tried soft words, but neither kindness nor anger worked. Tiu Man kept causing scenes. She demanded to stay and continue seeing him. Otherwise, she would expose everything. In desperation, Fong grabbed her neck and shoved her onto a table. Drunk and enraged, he lost control completely. When he finally came to his senses, Tiu Man was no longer breathing. Realizing he had killed her, Fong tried to hide the crime. He stuffed her body into a woven bag and dumped it in the reeds at night. Nui Hai Fong was sentenced to death for intentional murder. After hiding for months, he finally paid for his crime. This case reminds people to control their words and actions, especially around intoxicated people, as things can quickly end in tragedy. What do you think about today's case? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching today. See you again in future videos. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more real crime stories.